So first of all, what's Event Grid?
So Event Grid is our built-in eventing platform within Azure. So the thing people are most familiar with is pub subsystems.
Yes.
So it is a pub subsystem, full-blown. It's one of the Azure messaging services alongside Service Bus and Event Hubs. But it's not just a general-purpose pub subsystem. It does that, and it does that quite well. But it also is baked directly into the Azure platform to allow you to have native Azure events out of the system. So you can not only pump your own events in and out of the system, filter on them, fan out, do those sorts of things, but you can also consume storage events like blob created and deleted, or IoT Hub events, or Azure Maps events, those sorts of things.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So if I were coming from, say, a service bus background, how is this different?
Sure, yeah. So Event Grid is meant as, so one of the big differences is that it's a push-push system. So you push into Event Grid and then it pushes to your endpoints.
Yep.
It is built for reactive programming. And so it is basically meant to trigger downstream processes to occur on a push basis.
Yep.
So Service Bus does a whole lot of things such as maintaining order, allowing things like peak lock on a queue. They give you really fine-grained control over every single message. And you care about that because you have command and control sort of scenarios, right? So a message coming through Service Bus many times is kind of an order that's telling a downstream service, you must do this.
All right, yep.
Whereas in Event Grid, this is a way of notifying that an event has occurred, and each service can be loosely coupled and decide how to react to that event.
Yeah. So if I was what's a good example? It's something that listens out for the event. I can go, actually that event is not important, but this one is.
Sure. Yeah. Totally. Absolutely. You can do that sort of thing. And actually, we have filters on the wire so that each service can subscribe on a given topic to only the events that it's interested in. So you can filter on the event type or the payload of the event itself. And it also allows for loose coupling. So let's say I'm a system on an e-commerce website that is taking in orders. My shipping platform might need to know about some subset of those events. My restocking platform might need to know about some other subset of those events, and those might not be the same. And I also, maybe as the owner of the service that's taking in orders, I don't really want to know about my downstream consumers in a tight way. Like, I don't want them to, tell me that they need X, Y, and Z. I just want to put these events in the topic, and then those downstream services can subscribe or not to what they're interested in.
Yeah, that makes sense. So what would be as sort of a standard, not a standard, but what's a common architecture that you see using this sort of Event Grid, implementation?
Yeah. So one very common scenario we see is people dropping data that is in some raw and unprocessed form into storage, and then on a push basis, as those events are coming in real time, they're triggering some microservice to go pick up that file in storage and do some process on it.
So that could be like an image compression service or something.
Absolutely, yeah.
All right. That's really, I like this. So what kind of services on Azure can use Event Grid? Is it everything?
Yep. So the eventual goal is that every single Azure service will be natively integrated with Event Grid. So the services that are integrated today, when you're looking at them in the Azure portal, you actually see a little lightning bolt that says events. You click there and you can just see the event types that it natively produces. We also have the event handlers. So you can, the basic 101 way of consuming events from Event Grid is to send to a webhook endpoint. But we're also working on getting native integrations with many of the Azure services to handle the events. So for example, today we have a first-class integration with Logic Apps and with Azure Functions. So you can point it directly to one of those services, and you actually get you're not just getting a raw JSON payload, but you actually get some intelligent way of handling that event. We're also working. We also have integration with Event Hubs, for example, so you can push the event directly into Event Hub. So if you have really high throughput and you need to buffer or you need to build a competing consumer pattern via Event Hubs, that's available. So we have quite a few integrations both on the event sourcing side as well as the event handling side.
So you mentioned Event Hub. How is that? How does that relate to Event Grid?
Sure, yeah. So Event Hub is a streaming log for events.
Okay.
So that's where you kind of do big data pipelines within Azure, and you have streaming data scenarios. So maintaining order is possible in Event Hub. So places where you derive information from time series events.
Sure.
Totally a canonical scenario there.
Yep.
Also things like event sourcing patterns. So every time my state changes, I might write to an event hub,
Yes, okay.
and then I now have a history of these events, and I can actually go know my state and the history of my state in a given application, which might be interesting for anything from replay to various sorts of analytics.
Yeah. So Event Grid is stateless?
Yes.
Okay. Because I think that's important. Like, just when you think of using these things, that Event Grid is just, hey, I'm just spitting things out that are coming in, whereas Event Hub, you can actually get the history, I guess, or the state of it.
Exactly, yeah. So Event Hub actually, so you have a cursor or a pointer in your data stream, and you move that along, but as you move that along and read new events in your Event Hub, you're not actually deleting the events. Those live for up to 7 days, and then you can actually even archive them into storage to live forever in an Avro file format.
Forever. So if I want to start with Event Grid, if I want to start, because I got a scenario, say, in mind where I need to push events out to things that I might handle or might be the native implementation of it. How do I start? Where do I go?
Yeah, the easiest place to get started is you just go to Azure Docs and look at the Event Grid documentation pages. And we have quick starts on how to get started using your own custom events or how to get started using storage events, and in many flavors. So whether or not you love the portal or CLI or PowerShell, we have quick starts for all of those. And those kind of give you a really good idea of what the service is overall. And from there, your basic building blocks, and you can kind of go explore into deeper tutorials or samples, things like that. We'll be increasing the number of topics within an event domain to a large scale, somewhere between 100,000 and 1 million topics within an event domain.
1 million.
1 million. And just to give you a quick idea of what an event domain is, so what we did was we built an architecture to make it easier for services within Azure when they're using Event Grid, such as storage, to publish to all of their tenants, right? Okay. So storage doesn't want to go ahead and publish to every single storage user on an individual basis. So we have an architecture that allows us to handle all of the authorization of each of their tenants, as well as the breaking up of the events and sending it to the proper tenants. Right. So what we've done is we've actually taken that same architecture and we've made it available to any customer as an external feature. So now you go create an event domain, we give you a single endpoint, but then you can create end topics within that domain. You can set roles on each topic and allow for certain customers to access any given topic. And then you can publish all of your events for all of your customers to that domain. We'll take care of breaking those events apart into each topic, and then each one of your end customers or your tenants can subscribe only to the topics that they're authorized to listen to.
That is really cool. Like that's actually I can see a lot of use cases for that.
Yeah, it's pretty exciting. I mean, you can think of things from, broadcasting notification systems to replatting the back end of an entire CRM system onto something like an event domain.
Jeez. Oh, that's really cool. So if you want to know more about Event Grid, go to the Azure Docs or the Azure portal, give it a go. But on that, thanks, Bahram. That's been really cool.
Thank you.